Hey gladiators, welcome to Unit 1A, Lesson 5, where we're going to talk all about influential philosophers. So these are people who influence the ideas that go into our government. The goal for this lesson is to be able to identify which influential philosophers created different ideals that are important to American government. This is very similar to what we did yesterday with the documents, except today we're talking about people who influenced the ideas that we have for government. So the first thing you need to make sure that you write down is what an influencer is and what the term philosophy means. So an influencer is anybody who convinces us to act or think in a certain way. So think about social media influencers. So they are people who are convincing enough that we want to think or act or just even watch them in a certain way. The term philosophy means the study of general and fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, reason, mind, and language. The study of philosophy is the study of thoughts. These are things that we are thinking about. So all of the people that we're going to talk about in this lesson are philosophers. They are thinking about thinking and thoughts, but specifically they're thinking about government. Our first influential philosopher is Thomas Hobbes. And Thomas Hobbes believed that people were inherently bad. They believed that we have this thing called the state of nature, which means that, if we have the opportunity to kill, maim, or hurt one another, that we're definitely going to do that. And so he wrote in his book called The Leviathan that in order to gain protection from each other, from the bad people, that we need to enter into a social contract with the government. And that term social contract is something that you definitely need to make sure that you have in your notes, and it's going to be very, very important. The social contract means that people give up rights so the government can protect them from other people. Now, Thomas Hobbes believed that the social contract could not be broken. So once you entered into that social contract, it's not like you actually signed off, but you're born into the social contract. When you are born into that social contract, it can't be changed. It can't be broken. And so he believed that even if the government started, messing around and not doing stuff good for the people, that, that's it. That's your government. That's your social contract. It can't be changed. You signed it. You're done. The end. Our next philosopher, and I'll move my face so you can see him, is this guy named John Locke. And John Locke lived from 1632 to 1704, so a little bit after Thomas Hobbes. And he believed that the government should protect natural rights. So he also believed that we are entered into this social contract, but he believed that the government was meant to protect our natural rights. And natural rights are any rights that people are born with, and these are things that no government can take away. So he actually believed that natural rights included life, liberty, and remember, liberty means freedom, and property. That those are our natural rights, and no government can take those away. John Locke wrote all of this stuff in his book called The Two Treatises on Government. Now, John Locke also talked about the social contract, just like Thomas Hobbes. So Locke actually built onto Hobbes' idea of the social contract. John Locke believed that the social contract could be changed if the government was not protecting our natural rights. So he believed so strongly that natural rights were important. He believed that the government should protect them. And if the government wasn't protecting them, that the government needed to be replaced. Our next philosopher is this guy named JeanJacques Rousseau. So our first two guys were both English philosophers, but JeanJacques Rousseau is a French philosopher, and he disagreed with Hobbes. Rousseau wrote a book called The Social Contract, and he believed that if the government was not holding up its end of the contract, that the people could replace the government. So he believed more like Locke did. He said, you know what? Yes to natural rights, and yes, we should replace the government. This this idea that the government can be replaced is critical because Rousseau believed that people could change the social contract because of this ideal of popular sovereignty. I know there's a G here in this word, but it is pronounced sovereignty. And when you think of the word sovereignty, you need to think of think of ruling. A sovereign is a ruler. So if we have popular sovereignty, we're saying that the people, the populace, actually rule the government. So popular sovereignty is the idea that the people have the power in government and the government should be run by the people. This is actually a pretty radical idea for its time period. And a lot of the ideas for the United States government, for the American colonists, come from JeanJacques Rousseau and his idea of popular sovereignty. Our last philosopher is another Frenchman named Baron Charles de Montesquieu. Montesquieu. He lived from 1712 to 1788, so he actually got to see the birth of the new nation of the United States. He wrote this book called The Spirit of the Laws, and he was writing all about how government should be set up. And so there were two big ideas that he believed a government should have. And the first was the idea of separation of powers. So he believed that any government, in order to protect individual rights, individual liberties, that the government had to be split into three separate branches. One branch to make the laws, one branch to enforce the laws, and one branch to interpret the laws. And he believed that each one of those branches should have its own specific powers. And that's the idea of separation of powers, is that each branch of government has its own powers, its own responsibilities that the others don't have. Separation of powers goes along with the idea of checks and balances, where each of the branches of government has a way to weaken the other branches of government. Remember, this is all about protecting individual rights and natural rights. And so it's the idea that if the government is so busy working against itself, it's not going to have time to threaten individual liberties and individual freedoms. And you need to make sure that you remember the three branches of government. Our three branches of government are the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. In this lesson, you should have learned to identify which influential philosophers created different ideals that are important to American government. If there's anything you missed in the video, go back now and re-watch that portion of the video. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask.